the Apple event and kind of talk about that. One, anticipating, of course, what they'll show. There was a lot of leaks this year, so there wasn't too many surprises, at least from my side, but it was pretty cool finally actually seeing the iPhone Air, which was very interesting. A lot of people, this reminds them of, and I can't remember which iPhone it is, maybe the 6, like one of the YouTubers, they showed it bending and, like that was like a big thing or whatever. So a lot of people were just like, this was kind of reminding them of that device.
When Google came out with their Pixel event, that device loved all the features on it. But also the new updated features and chips are really, really cool. The chipset that they put into this version of the phones, all of the phones, the Air, the 17 Max, Pro Max, and all of that, very, very cutting edge, very, very nice.
The devices, the Pro devices, they actually seem pretty cool. Right now, I'm rocking the 16 Pro Max. They had like the 48 megapixels on the Pro Maxes or on the Pros. That looked good. The new vapor chamber or whatever they're calling it on the top of the devices, that was pretty good. But, things along with the operating system and just, how you can function and all those things. Like, I'm looking for a lot of that because that was really what Google flexed. Like, when.
Remember when Apple Intelligence, they announced that and they had all the commercials and everything talking about what Apple Intelligence would do. You see lately they've kind of slowed down on that and kind of, quietly took those commercials away. Not to bash Apple, but it's just interesting how they kind of went away or shied away from the AI stuff. And even in this event launch, they barely mentioned it, which we've kind of, me and you, DJ, have speculated like, you know what? Apple needs to stick to what they do well, and that is their devices, right? That is their ecosystem. The hardware is what they do well. And this
I believe that they'll be able to figure it out, and I think they'll come out with something that's really compelling. Like, I want to feel like they're going to figure something out, and I don't know exactly what it is, if they're going to go with a third party to them, like a Gemini, which was rumored, or if they'll go with deeper integration with OpenAI, which we'll be getting to here shortly in a second, because OpenAI is just, I mean, they're just all over the place. They're literally all over the place. As quoted here by The Verge, they articulated it well. They said the presentation was far cry from Apple's heavy-handed mentions of AI at the iPhone 16 unveiling, which you were correct, Deuce. Then they said, which led to public disappointment when some flagship features didn't roll out as promised. So you're right also, because there was a commercial, she was talking to Siri and she was just like, can you find the email or along those lines? And you don't see that anymore. That is not on rotation.
So also with that device launch, they also had the AirPods 3 that they are launching and releasing as well with live language translation, which of course seems to be the new norm for headphones that are coming out as far as the pod headphones that are syncing with phones. The Google Pixel Pod Buds, I would say is what they are, had them as well. But it's interesting, live translation, which has been around for a little while, but bringing it to kind of more of a mainstream headphone is going to be cool to see how well those do.
If anybody that with all the languages, I just think that that's a cool feature, and I think it does solve a big problem. I'm actually really excited about it, outside of the whole nail salon stuff and all that, but just like in reality, like traveling, I think that'll be pretty cool, because if you travel abroad and maybe you're not as fluent with different languages as you'd like to be, that can kind of help out, but we'll see how that is. But you're right.
They've had it for a while, but I feel like it's one of those features that maybe wasn't the best, right? It's been kind of around for a while, but I don't think it's been one of the features that was really like pushed as far as like, oh, look at this. A lot of people didn't really, I would say, care for that, especially from the headphone space, right? I feel like if we talk about headphones, Apple kind of owns a pretty big lion's share of that headphone market, especially since they own Beats and Beats by Dre, and everywhere you turn around, you can see that people with that white AirPod hanging in their ear, right?
OpenAI and Microsoft, they signed a preliminary deal to revise their partnership term. Essentially, as we know, and I think in the verbiage before, like there was something like, once OpenAI reaches AGI, and that definition isn't like really hardened, but once they reach that, then I think the partnership would no longer exist. Long story short, now they're kind of restructuring that. OpenAI and Microsoft announced that they have signed a non-binding agreement to revise their partnership, marking the latest development in relationship that has grown increasingly complex as both companies compete for customers in the AI market and seek new partnerships for growing infrastructure needs. If you look at it, Deuce, like for work, you have Microsoft Copilot or Copilot 365 and like all of the same really kind of tools that you use. You can get that with OpenAI. They have very similar things for OpenAI's enterprise version of ChatGPT. And then, of course, you have Microsoft 365. So for me, it did seem confusing to why like they were so in the vein of one lane. It's like you pick one for one solution and maybe another for another.
Well, the crazy thing about this whole deal, there's a lot that goes into it, right? It's very high stakes, the article, but what's crazy about it is it still the restructuring requires approvals from, attorney generals in California, Delaware. So it kind of really goes to speculate like, there's a lot going into this deal. Wild, so to speak. I'm telling you, I said this before, this is how Skynet was formed. A partnership like this, you take the biggest leader in AI, OpenAI, and Microsoft, one of the leading computing companies out there, and put them together. That's Skynet. So because of this rapidly changing relationship, OpenAI has diversified its infrastructure partnerships, including participation in the $500 billion Stargate project with Oracle and SoftBank, while Microsoft has expanded Azure to host competing models from Meta, xAI, and DeepSeek. So this Stargate project, what does that sound like? Skynet.
I mean, so everybody, when they talk about that, I would think that would be more. Some people say Skynet, and they think more on the Grok side or on the because then you have robots and you have like Elon side. I mean, like he just has the whole gamut of things, right? Yeah, robotics and all of that. And I know OpenAI has a partnership, but
But speaking of deals, OpenAI has struck another deal with a big company. Like I said, one of the most lucrative cloud computing deals of all time. Oracle and OpenAI have signed a $300 billion cloud deal. So now this deal, they are purchasing computing power from Oracle over 5 years. That's roughly 60 billion with a B, Billy, a year. It's crazy because that far outstrips OpenAI's current revenue. And it's, of course, like I said, one of the largest cloud contracts ever, and it will require 4.5 gigawatts. A lot of power capacity, the cloud computing behind it. That's equivalent to over 4 million homes. The amount of power you need to power on 4 million homes is the same amount of power they're going to need for this cloud that they're building out. Here's the thing, though, about this whole deal that's very interesting, and the deals that OpenAI continues to make. OpenAI technically is still not profitable. As a startup as they are, we know their worth, their potential, and right now, essentially, we'd classify them as a unicorn. But they have not shown, and they're not making a profit.
yeah, we did because we saw that report, right? It said it wasn't profitable. Maybe like I just can't imagine. I can't imagine at this point them not being profitable. I just
It's the thing is it's risky. It's risky because obviously you look at, if we were to, kind of open up their books and look at, their balance sheet, really, they're not making any money, so to speak. But I mean, technically we know the potential behind it. Yes, they can keep the lights on, they have all these deals, they have all this cash flow coming in. And OpenAI is losing money. They disclosed in June recently that they're only generating about 10 billion in annual revenue. And the thing about it is like the risk, is it worth the reward? And a lot of people believe so. That's why they are getting deals like this, right?